Quelle mosaïque de ma vie, quelle palette encore morcelée, étincelante, pourrait encadrer le souffle qui bat, envahit chaque paysage, chaque cri rythmé des autres. Tu me fais sucer une douleur qui me fait devenir l'amante de tout, amante des couleurs, des sons. Je tombe amoureuse de toute passion morte. I think that the ability to be different people and to accept different ways of thinking within oneself is crucial. And I do think that in France, people do that more than probably in any other country that I've lived in. That there is, in a sense, even, I mean, you see it sort of with smoking. There's a very bad side to smoking, and it does, you know, I don't like secondary smoke and everything, but there is a sense that one's vices are okay. One can have vices. One doesn't have to be a perfect person. When I arrived in France, I was 20 years old, and I was very lucky. I landed a job with the London Times on the strengths of an interview I did with Ionesco, which is in Through Parisian Eyes. Basically, I'd spent 3 years at Oxford studying French literature and French culture, and I didn't really have much grounding in the practical world. And so my life was very literary, and I used to hold a salon where I would invite people and discuss ideas. And I was living out a bit of a myth, which slowly crumbled as, I would say, as this book, as the life of this book, somehow swept into my more academic self, the world of emotion and the world of impulse. In France, there was a tremendous passion and interest in the subject of love, and that, I think, encouraged me in one of my most destructive moods possible, which was to search out love, and to search it out in all its forms. The empathy that is inherent in love, feeling that you are in another person's skin, that you can feel their pain, that you cry when they cry, that all that is in my work and actually defines it, whether it's journalism or the art of love or the recent book that I wrote, Badlands, which is set in the Indian reservation in South Dakota. I think that the gap between my personal life and my art would have been greater if I hadn't lived in France, and I think that France gave me the chance to take things to extremes. And you always make mistakes when you try out new identities. You are going to sometimes hurt yourself, but that's part of the process of giving oneself a chance to become what one is fully. And so in a way, I'm looking back on it, I think perhaps at times I went a little bit too far in my experimentation and hurt myself badly, but I'm not sorry that I did it. I feel that I now also have access to a much greater world of people within myself, of characters, of emotions, and that I can go back and have access. That's actually one of the things that one does when one writes or paints. One has access to all these years that one has lived. En tête la douleur comme une bonne louve. To let the summer be washed like a fresco from the wall. To let the cold river of mud slide like a wedding dress over your limbs, wedded to rivers of night. To be forced to let this leaving forever, never regained neither in warmth nor wine. To leave, to cry, to hug this coldness close like a mother. To rock in the breast of unmerciful shudders of cold, nor cradle calm, to surrender one's hands up like a criminal, Saviour crossed, and be blotted neutral against the sky. As a child, from I don't know, the age of 4 or whatever, my role seemed to be a kind of entertaining child. Since my family was not that happy, it was quite a strain to be so constantly entertaining when, you know, my parents were quite miserable a lot of the time with each other. I really retreated a lot into books and loved poetry, and I loved books, and so this was my escape. And when the house became unhappy, I would just lock myself up in my room and read. So that led me into my love of writing. And when my grandmother died when I was 10, I remember I promised myself that I would write a book that would sum her up, all of her, so I wouldn't miss her. And I started writing this book, and I thought I could do it, and I gave up, of course, because it didn't work. But even at that age, there was that wish to use writing to answer some of the fundamental losses, the most awful pains, that somehow writing in words could do this for me. And I bent down and I touched the soil of America, the arid, blasted, sun-charred soil that was given to Abe's parents. It's Indian country, reservation. It's yours, so you stay there, in hate with the worst land. You can't go on seeing the land like this day in, day out, missing her beauty, the way she is, just because she was once the garbage can shaped by government treaties. You can't go on seeing the land castrated, sad, just because they left her to you as a prison, a way of keeping you out of the fertile land, where the farms are white and Jesus prospers. But poor Abe stood there, lashing out at me, threatening fire and brimstone and hell from a medieval world. He stood there like a plant grown from the old roots of the land when she was made a reservation, and all the sadness ended in his frame, his burning eyes, but he doesn't know what he comes from, and has nothing to forgive and let go. So I walked towards him with no hurt any more in my face. I sensed some pity, but a strength of vast depths in my bones coming at him, and I took the matches and handed them to him. I think that the way that one loves cannot be separated from the way that one lives. It's the most revealing side of a person. And in my own life, the ability to love, first when I was 17, it inspired all my poetry. In every stage, it's been the new inspiration. And when I have been unhappily in love, it's been inspiring, but it's also destroyed the rest of my life too. I mean, I haven't been able to separate it off from the way, my whole vision. It defines my vision. Experiencing passion on a daily basis intensifies it. And what I realized was that some of the shorter, intense bursts of passion were often there because I couldn't stand the existence of passion in its fully fledged form on a daily basis. And when you are very close to somebody, that is what happens. Your life becomes so linked to theirs. Everything you do becomes a part of their life in a sense, even when you have very separate identities. And so the intensity is even greater than in a short fling. And that, I think, is one of the ways in which one can sanitize marriage and say, oh, you know, it's not the right place for passion, but it actually is an intensifier of it, if you can bear it, if you can stand the heat.